Over the years, Luna's cinematographic profile and identity have received a lot of reception on a global scale. Remarks such as Luna being the most cinematic K-pop group out there have always been a source of pride, and it has always resonated with the hearts and minds of every diehard Luna fan. While theories have always been grounded in the philosophy of Luna itself, one aspect that most theorists miss are the cultural origins of the elements of the Lunaverse. In this video, we'll open a deeper, complicated, and comprehensive perspective to the untapped side of the lore. We will focus more on Wong Kar-wai's work and why his films are a part of the Lunaverse. Knowing and building theories have always been an integral part of being on orbit. It is a part of the entire Luna experience aside from listening to their music or watching their videos. Their messages are meticulously crafted into every single track and music video they have ever released. Given its complexity, sometimes I ask myself, where do these wonderful and majestic ideas even come from? The range of emotions in their music explicitly reminds me of poets, such as Poe and Shakespeare. Music videos and teasers have also played a large role in conveying what Luna wants us to see, as it comprises most, if not all, of the visual details that lead us to the outskirts of the Lunaverse. BBC and Digipedi's creative way of integrating every element together in such a manner also reminds me of several filmmakers. One example is Bong Joon-ho, whose style revolves around the idea of starting and ending a film in the same place and setting. And we can actually see this style in some of Luna's music videos, such as the start and ending of So What and Sweet Crazy Love. Other than Bong, there is also Tarantino, Nolan, Anno, and most importantly, Wong Kar-wai. Who is Wong Kar-wai? What is the Chungking series? And why is he relevant to the Lunaverse? The art house style of filmmaking has always been prevalent in most of Luna's music videos, and it tends to deviate from the conventional, orthodox style of producing music videos, especially in the K-pop industry. Coincidentally, this is also the genre where Wong's films belong. Wong Kar-wai is a pivotal figure in the cinema industry of Hong Kong. He is known to have his films portrayed using his creative sense of reality. He frequently plays with colors. His films hint the sense of roaring nostalgia, the use of nonlinear narratives, the distorted and conflicted emotions between the characters and viewers are very prevalent. Most importantly, his inclusion of socio-political anecdotes and references, all of which are also evident in Luna's music. He is best known for his films In the Mood for Love, which is probably his most notable work yet. Happy Together, which is the first LGBT-inclusive film to ever debut in China, then Chungking Express, and Fallen Angels. Following the box office failure of Ashes of Time, Wong began to work on a different project that tours us to a very special place in his mind, which is Chungking Express, a film which he started making whilst the former was still in post-production. Chungking Express is generally about a dramatic rom-com film that is set in 90s Hong Kong. It is a film with two different and unrelated plots, different characters, but oftentimes, the characters would find themselves uncannily in the same place at the same time. Some people would also describe it as a film that positions itself around the idea of love, loss, and memory through romance. Originally, Chungking Express was supposed to be a 3-plot film, but unfortunately, it was only cut into 2 due to time and financial constraints. The third story would happen to be a separate film with also 2 parts, which would also then be known as Fallen Angels. While Chungking Express primarily focuses on the intriguing traces of romance among its characters, Fallen Angels on the other hand takes us on a journey of heartbreak and unrequited love. Fallen Angels tackles the unrequited love between a hitman and his boss, and the hapless story between a delinquent and a hopeless romantic. Wong's relevance and indirect contribution to the formation of the Looniverse is very multifaceted and complicated to begin with. Some film scholars would describe his films as a series of interconnected stories, which fits the description of the naturally fragmented narrative of the Looniverse. The Looniverse itself is very reminiscent of Wong's work. It is a roller coaster ride of emotions, ranging from the vibrant innocence of Kiss Later, the strong and intense love in Heart Attack, to the depressing mood of Sweet Crazy Love. While the typical person sees this as mundane, these emotions are human and are something that should be felt and experienced. Just like how Wong derived some of his films from poetic pieces like Intersection, which is very prevalent in the Mood for Love. The same goes for BBC, whose work is centered around the idea of heartbreak, chaos, and euphoria. Themes that are prevalent in Wong's films. Wong's involvement in the Looniverse only became widely superficial when Egoist was released back in 2018. There were countless references to his old films, Chungking Express, and Fallen Angels in particular. First was during the rap scene, where we see the open cans below Jinsol. This is a direct reference to Cop 223 scene, where he ate 30 cans of sliced pineapples, something that symbolizes the act of hoping that things would go back to what they were before he and his girlfriend broke up. This is also something that reminds me of how Jinsol's ego developed when her animal died in Sweet Crazy Love. Second is the neon lights beyond Jinsol that translate to Fallen Angels, which is a sequel to Chungking Express. A popular theory suggests that the Fallen Angels reference reflects Olivia Hye's description when she was allegedly left by the Eden girls in the castle, which resulted in her longing for retaliation. This description of Olivia also eerily matches with the assassin's description, as she was also a victim of unrequited love. Note that she also mirrors her when she depressingly lies down and pleasures herself on the hitman's bed, just the same as how Olivia lies down and cuddles with herself on some parts of Egoist. At first, I thought that these were mere cameos, or even just Easter eggs in the Looniverse, until I started revisiting Wong's portfolio by watching his early works. I would say that the list of references stretches on and on for miles, but we will get back to these references later on. One of the very noteworthy connections between Wong's work and the Looniverse are these three key characters: Cop 663's ex, Faye, and the girl from Fallen Angels. The Orai Circle, looking at it as a component of the Looniverse, actually carries both the answers and the questions that we want to digest. While it is known that they may be the most lore-laced subunit, little is known about how these characters came into Inception, or even how and where these characters were derived from. Generally, Kimlip, Jinsol, and Cherry are the middlemen of the Looniverse, both literally and figuratively. Literally in a sense that how these characters were positioned in the middle of the Mobius Strip, which is a topographical model that serves as a gateway and a gold standard to understanding the Looniverse. Figuratively, they are the ones who are supposed to connect each girl from the other, bridging the gap between Earth, which is 1/3 setting, and Eden, where YY resides. Locations are like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It is essential to understanding the entire lore of the Looniverse. Orai Circle has a very creative approach to incorporating themselves into the storyline, even if it means going supernatural. Each of them has their own unique set of powers and abilities: superhuman speed, teleportation, and interdimensional travel. One thing that defines the position of OEC is that they have always centered and set their storyline in the state of California, which is quite mysterious at some point. Going back to Chungking Express, we encounter a scene just before the ending where Faye and Cop 663 plan to go on a date in California, which is a small bar across the street where Faye works.
聽乜得唔得閒啊？
做咩問我聽晚得唔得閒？
所以約你去街咯。
點解要我去街？
老細話你聽晚唔使翻工嘅。
乜放假就去街㗎啦咩？
你考慮下先啦。聽晚8點喺斜對面嗰間 California 等你。
Things took quite a turn the following night, as Faye did not show up. A year later, she showed up finally, now donning a flight attendant uniform in a hurry to catch an early flight the following day. When the cop realizes that she was at the other California, coincidentally, where OEC is situated. It turns out, Faye was also waiting at the same bar, only earlier. But she laughed because it was raining, which brings us to Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain tells us about Jinsol trying to separate herself from the others while looking for her real self, as she deems herself as dangerous, hence her animal. In the first parts of the music video, we see that someone was looking and observing at her, a cinematographic style reminiscent of Wong and Doyle's work in the Mood for Love. Following that, we see Jinsol running away from something, like trying not to get caught, or something related to that. And this happened on a runway, which foreshadows Faye's fate as a character. This reflects Faye's philosophy as a person, because early in the film, she said that she has always wanted to go to California for fun, obviously trying to escape the busy and crowded environment of Hong Kong.
加州好玩咩？
好玩啩？唔好玩咪去第二度咯。
你中意四周圍去㗎？
你唔中意㗎？
我冇所謂㗎，去又得，唔去又得。
Also, I've read that being a flight attendant is actually a sign of longing and wanting freedom, a feeling that both Jinsol and Faye have in common. As the music video progresses, so as Faye's character development, we see Jinsol's hand playing with the goldfish in the tank during the bridge, and we also see her freeing a betta fish to the same tank, which references Faye adding new fish to Cop 663's tank. The act of putting the fish to the tank is an effort of Jinsol blending herself to the Luniverse, which also equates to Faye wanting to be a part of Cop 663's life. One prominent part supporting this theory is when Faye started to shoot paper airplanes out of the apartment window, which relates to Cherry throwing paper airplanes in Girl Front and Let Me In. Like Jinsol, Cherry also holds the keys to understanding the Luniverse. Cherry is considered to be one of the most mysterious characters in OEC as well as the Luniverse. Her description may be well interpreted at some point, but some links just seem to be missing. Which brings us to the second sub-theory about Odd Eye Circle. Cherry, like Kiblip and Jinsol, had their own backstories before their narratives were shown in the music videos. Jinsol, for instance, showed that she was once lost, but when she accepted herself, then became a better version of herself. Kimlep, on the other hand, is a character that embodies the characteristics of Odd Eye Circle. She is just as mysterious and out of this world. In Eclipse, we see her as a figure that wants to conceal her evilness. While the popular belief suggests that OEC's function is to unite all the girls, there is an underlying cause as to why the subunit's essence is creepy and mysterious. This reflects the daily conundrum the girl character faces and experiences in Fallen Angels. Fallen Angels' second dynamic plot is about a lost woman who always tells the estranged prisoner the same sob story every night. Duo then help her look for her old boyfriend, falling in love in the process. This line is differently interpreted in the context of the Luniverse, but relating it to Fallen Angels plot-wise, it is actually not too far off from the narrative. The character from Fallen Angels' sudden change of attitude also reflects how Cherry acted as soon as she ate her fruit. But Cherry, now the girl, seeming to not remember anything, unexpectedly becomes a flight attendant, leaving Tiwo dumbfounded as if he is invisible. And going back to Love Cherry Motion, remember when after she ate her fruit, she could not reconcile with Yotin and Hassel. She was seemingly transported to a dimension where everything was desolate, yet also orderly at the same time. This sudden change of setting is reminiscent of how Tiwoo and the girl lost contact after months and then finally bumped into each other at the same place where Chungking Express ended. As Cherry wanders around the empty field, this is also the same as how the girl searched for meaning and freedom, even though it was not explicitly shown. The two then became different versions of themselves. Cherry, known as starts to wander around like a child, running inside a newly opened Play Store. On the other hand, the girl is now ready to take on life's challenges as she becomes a flight attendant. And the best part about this sub-theory is that this will not conclude about tackling further on how she became a flight attendant. For the Wonker Wise stans who are watching this, you already know that I have kept myself from mentioning something, and that is the character's name. Charlie Young is the one who played that girl's character, and guess what her character's name was? Cherry. This shows a more vital interaction between BBC and Wong's influential work, as this connection signifies and merges the claim that this video wants to prove. But the endeavor of knowing more does not stop here. Speaking of flight attendants, this brings us to a different and new character, one whose description wasn't well expounded in Chungking Express. The Cop's Ex. Little is known about how the flight attendant's character developed throughout the film, but we get segments of memories where Cop 663 used to reminisce during the early stages of the second plot. We see them running around their flat, making love to each other, highlighting the affair that the dyad used to enjoy. The next thing we know, it's already over. Breaking up with a partner could signify a stage in life where you either want to break free from the relationship's toxicity or simply wish to see yourself enjoy the freedom you have always wanted to experience. This conundrum also applies to Kim Lip, where her pursuit for knowledge and meaning prevails. In Sweet Crazy Love, we see her touring around this desolate place, obviously trying to find answers. During the bridge, we see how Kim Lip's answers are trying to manifest, thus we see her running towards something. Now the MV arrives at its conclusion, and we see her leaving the place again, as if she is moving on. Relating this one to the narrative of Chungking, the lonely place she went symbolizes the relationship the flight attendant once had. As she realizes that there is a better option, she leaves the place to embark on a new journey, but now with a different motive. They bump into each other one last time. The girl, seeming to be happier than she ever was before, bids farewell to the past she has chosen to forget. This mirrors Kim Lip's character development as she continues to search for her counterparts in Odd Eye Circle. The journey of uniting everyone in Luna begins as the three girls join together in California, the birthplace of Girlfront. What do these characters from both universes have in common? Remember when I said that geography is an important aspect of the universe? One common ground that both universes share is California. And California seems to be a place of promising features, as the two universes would imply. And its role may not be well defined, but it certainly is big and important. The second is that they are all flight attendants. And in some moments in the film, we see them wear their uniforms. Even though Odd Eye Circle's uniforms are derived from the typical school uniform, the inspiration behind it may have been from the flight attendant uniforms in the Chungking series. I also forgot to mention that they belong to the same airline, United, a carrier that flies daily to Los Angeles from Hong Kong. And coincidentally, this corresponds to Odd Eye Circle's function in the Luniverse, which is to unite all the girls. Going back to what Faye said earlier, she said that she'll fly out early the following day. A record from 1996 shows that the flight bound for LAX is scheduled to depart at 1:35 in the afternoon, which makes sense because she has to go to the airport a few hours prior for preparation. Other than that, there are also other elements and references, however non-canon, that come into play. Elements such as the use of the train, the airplane, the moon puzzle Cop 663 was solving. In the Burn teaser series, we see the following. In color grading, the Burn logo in red, same with the background and In the Mood for Love. The Chinese characters in the hash teaser that translate to Chungking Express breakfast. Other than those non-canon details, there are creamier details that you can see in some of the music videos. The bear from Rain 51dB, Hustle imitating Cop 663, Faye carrying a big cat plushie, Sonatan's lyrics, which references to the password please lines in Chungking Express.
Okay.
密碼唔該。
我你啱啊你。
你702號房嘅朋友話 say happy birthday 喎。
Running Cop 223 reminiscent of Vivi running in Hi Hi, and it goes on and on and on. And on. During the scene where Cop 223 wanted to buy almost expired canned goods at the mini grocer, we eerily see Jinsol, Cherry, and Vivi's birthday dates in the cans. Note that this film was released 2 years before Vivi was even born. The films and the examples that I have just shown stand as a conclusion to Wong Kar-wai's cinematic and artistic evolution, just like how the narrative is amplified by a step further from As Years Go By to the Chungking series. This creative play of filming also gives BBC the chance to amplify his film's stories to a certain degree that is friendlier and also confusing. Choosing a narrative path like this is probably just as risky as debuting a girl group like LOONA, with elements derived predominantly from the industry's known figures and personalities. It is sometimes difficult to comprehend how everything fits perfectly into the narrative. It somewhat feels like LOONA was destined to be such a group with a very complicated storyline. While one's contribution to the building blocks of the Looniverse is beyond substantial, one must keep in mind that his work is just a precursor to what the Looniverse is today. In the future, I will be analyzing more into the hidden references that LOONA's videos have that are yet to be discovered and attributed to different figures. LOONA's music videos have always been very relatable. As Asian Theory said, every song is designed to have a specific purpose and to achieve a certain mood. Wong's work has influenced countless films and narrative pieces around the world. His work may not be popular, but seeing his movies made in the same universe as us is something that is worth celebrating. The Looniverse will always stay as an example of how influential his works are. No matter how old his films have become, having to feel his work is a concrete example of how life should be lived to the fullest.